Joined on the broadcast by Brad Curle, a longtime voice of the Calgary Hitmen in the Western Hockey League. Hitmen coming off 2 straight first-round exits. Brad, tell us about the conclusion to last season. What are the expectations this year in Cowtown for the Hitmen?
Last year, they ran into the powerhouse of the Western Hockey League. The Regina Pats were the most dominant team in the regular season, and unfortunately for Calgary, that was their first-round draw. As you would expect, it was a short series. The Regina Pats able to complete a 4-game sweep. But I think in the big picture, Patrick, a successful year off the ice in the sense that they were able to get into the playoffs for a 6th consecutive season, and also 2 major events that drew an awful lot of attention just outside the market. One being the teddy bear toss. It's become kind of the pride and focal point of the organization year after year, and it's a big part of what the fans do. They bring hundreds of teddy bears, and at the end of the day, it's thrown on the ice when the Hitmen score their first goal, and quite often excess of 20,000, and last year was no different. So that was a big win for charity. And the second initiative was an anti-bullying game that they had never tried before, and it was a resounding success. More than 10,000 school kids from Calgary and area coming to the game, wearing pink shirts, and at the same time hearing some messages about anti-bullying from some pretty high-impact athletes, including former CFL player Randy Chevrier. Some big wins in the community off the ice and on the ice to get back into the playoffs. It's never a bad thing. That's what you want, is an opportunity to get to the dance and play in the postseason. And as I mentioned off the top, for Calgary, fell in the opening round of the Regina Pats.
Very good. We've had similar initiatives here regarding the anti-bullying, and it seems every year there's a video of the teddy bear toss in Calgary that goes viral, so they're doing the right thing out there for sure. Looking at the Hitmen roster from afar, I think the name that would stand out would be Jake Bean. Fans would be familiar with him through the World Juniors, first-round draft pick of Carolina. Tell us about him and his progression over the years.
Well, I think in any other year, you might be talking about an NHL defenseman right now in Jake Bean, but the Carolina Hurricanes, to their credit, have really strengthened their depth on the back end, and as a result, when he came to camp this fall, it was a real tough assignment for him to try and make that roster, but hearing a lot of comments, including from Carolina Hurricanes head coach Bill Peters, just could not say enough good things about Jake Bean. And as a matter of fact, one quote that Peters had said is, "We would like to keep him, but just don't have the roster room." So obviously encouraging for Jake now as a 19-year-old to show how close he is to the National Hockey League, but he's such a consummate pro. When he arrived back in Calgary, smile on his face, happy to be here. And I know sometimes when players come back from pro camps, it can be a real adjustment and sometimes a letdown when you think that you've played well enough to earn a roster spot, but it hasn't happened. But he understands that he's going to be a big driver of this Calgary Hitmen team. One of those defensemen who's going to play about 30 minutes a night, quarterback the power play, be on the ice in all the key situations. And at the end of the day, he's taken a lot of pride in his 200-foot game. And I know a lot of people talk about the offense that Jake Bean can bring. Nearly a point-a-game player in the Western Hockey League as a defenseman, speaks to his offensive ability and upside as a player and a pro moving forward to perhaps quarterback a Carolina Hurricanes power play one day. But defensively, I think he's taken some big strides as well. And as you know, so much of what happens for teams offensively starts in your own zone. And the thing that Jake has that a lot of players just don't have is vision. And you speak to the forwards on the Hitmen, and quite often a puck will land on their stick and they had no idea it was coming, just because Jake was able to spot them and really stretch the ice. He's such a crucial part of the organization, and I think the Hitmen are thrilled to have him back. They know that it will be a short time back, at least. Many expect him to go back on the world stage and play for Canada's World Junior team, and hopefully for him get an opportunity to win gold after the Team Canada lost in the gold medal game last year.
Fans here will be cheering him on, I'm sure. Speaking of Jake Bean, a number of other players on the Hitmen with ties to NHL teams, be it draft picks or free agent signings. Who do you think, other than Bean, projects the most as a potential professional player?
I think they've got a number of players that could have that opportunity, and one for me is an interesting one. Matteo Gennaro had over 40 goals last year in the Western Hockey League, and I thought that he was going to get a professional contract. Didn't sign with the Winnipeg Jets, went to Ottawa Senators camp, both in the summer development camp, and they invited him back to training camp, but no contract yet. I would think before the season is over, there will be a free agent contract for Matteo Gennaro to be had. He's another one of those players where his 200-foot game has really, really rounded out, especially as he's aged in the Western Hockey League and now in his final season. He's as reliable in his own zone as he is in the offensive zone. And I think players at the National Hockey League level have to be able to play in their own end, and Gennaro has that. Another player that I think really has some potential upside for Calgary is Beck Mallenstein, Washington Capitals prospect. I think that he as well well, much like Gennaro is a real solid 200-foot player, and it sounds like he had a really good camp in Washington. Unfortunate part for Mallenstein, suffered an upper body injury here last week, so he'll be out for the foreseeable future. And Jacob Stukel, I think, is another intriguing prospect for me. He's property of the Vancouver Canucks, back for his overage season in the Western Hockey League as a 20-year-old. But you cannot teach speed, Patrick, and one thing that Stukel has is just explosive speed. I was talking with him the other day about it. I said, not comparing players by any stretch of the imagination, but you look at the National Hockey League and the speed and the separation that Connor McDavid can create and the offensive chances that he gets as a result of that with the Edmonton Oilers. See a lot of that in Jacob Stukel, just that ability to get the first quick 2-3 steps and generate speed. And the old story is forwards will always skate faster than defensemen can skate backwards, and you'll get those chances if you use your outside speed. And Jacob Stukel has that Connor McDavid type speed in his game. Obviously not at the same level, but a guy that can get around defense and really threaten. I think he's got the ability, if he can continue to develop. And the one thing that Connor, as we know, does so well at the NHL, doesn't slow down, makes plays at full speed. And we've seen Jacob Stukel really emerge as that type of player in the last 2 years. No longer slow down when you get the breakaway, just continue that high-end speed. I think he's got tremendous upside as well.
Some intriguing prospects there at the NHL level, probably having an impact this year in the WHL. We'll be keeping an eye from afar. Best of luck to you and the Hitmen this season. Brad, thanks for this.
Anytime. Thanks, Patrick.
That's Brad Curle. He's the voice of the WHL's Calgary Hitmen, joining us at the intermission. You're listening to Carstar, Cape Breton Scream Eagles Hockey, 1270 CJCB.